The Chicago skyline glowed faintly against the dusk as Nia Thompson, a 25-year-old Black American woman, pushed through the revolving door of her apartment building. Her dark skin glistened with a sheen of sweat from the late summer heat, her tightly coiled hair pulled back in a neat bun. Every muscle in her body ached, protesting another grueling day. 8 hours at a data entry job in a windowless office had drained her, and the 3-hour architecture lecture at the university had left her mind spinning with technical terms and looming deadlines. She craved a hot shower, a microwaved meal, and a few hours of sleep before doing it all again. But as she stepped into the living room, the heavy air told her rest would have to wait. Her parents, Angela and Robert Thompson, in their late 50s, and Black, sat rigidly on the worn leather sofa. Angela's deep brown eyes, framed by faint lines of worry, fixed on an envelope clutched in her slender fingers. Robert, his dark skin etched with the weight of years, had his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. Nia, her heart sinking, dropped her backpack by the door. The room felt like a courtroom, and she was on trial. "Nia, sit down," Robert said, his voice low and firm, carrying the authority of a man who'd spent decades as a high school principal. She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the strap of her bag. At 25, she was no child, but her parents' tone could still make her feel like one. Every family conversation was a minefield since her sister Kira's betrayal. 2 years ago, at 23, Nia had walked into her apartment to find Marcus, her boyfriend of 4 years, in bed with Kira, then 27. The memory still burned: Marcus's guilty eyes, Kira's smug smile, and Nia's heart shattering as she stood frozen in her bedroom. Her best friend Tasha had been there hurling curses at the pair, but Nia had just walked away, too broken to speak. "What's going on?" Nia asked, forcing her voice to stay steady as she sat across them. Angela exhaled, her gaze softening, but resolute. "We got this today." She slid the envelope across the coffee table. Nia's eyes caught the gold lettering before her fingers touched the paper. The invitation was lavish, the kind meant to impress. Her breath caught as she read Kira Thompson and Marcus Hayes. Her sister and her ex, now 29 and 30 respectively, both Black, were getting married. The betrayal, still raw, clawed at her chest. She didn't open the envelope. She didn't need to. The wedding was a public declaration of the life Kira had stolen. "This is a joke." Nia's voice was sharp, her dark eyes flashing with disbelief. Angela's lips tightened. "It's not a joke, Nia. You need to be there for the family." Nia laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the quiet room. "For the family? You expect me to celebrate the woman who slept with my boyfriend? The man who cheated on me?" Robert leaned forward, his deep voice cutting through her anger. "You're 25, Nia. It's time to move past this. Kira made a mistake, but holding on to this grudge won't help anyone." "A mistake?" Nia's voice rose, her hands clenching into fists. She knew exactly what she was doing. "And Marcus, he was mine for 4 years. They don't get to call that a mistake and expect me to clap at their wedding." Angela's eyes narrowed, but her tone remained calm. "Kira's your sister. She got carried away, but Marcus wasn't right for you. You were already drifting apart." "Drifting apart?" Nia's voice cracked. "That's not an excuse for betrayal. You're taking their side like always." "We're not taking sides," Robert said, his patience thinning. "We're trying to keep this family together. You're going to that wedding, Nia. It's the right thing to do." The words hit like a slap. Nia felt a chill run through her, her skin prickling under her blouse. She'd always been the good daughter, straight A student, part-time worker. Never a moment's trouble. At 25, she was juggling a job and architecture school, chasing a dream to design buildings that inspired. Yet here she was, expected to swallow her pain for an illusory concept of family, as she'd once called it in her journal. "I'm not going," Nia said, her voice steady now, sharp as a blade. "If you cared about me, you wouldn't ask this." Angela sighed, her hands folding tightly in her lap. "You're being selfish, Nia. Think about what this means for all of us." Selfish Nia stood, her heart pounding, but her resolve firm. "I've done everything you've ever asked. I've kept my head down, worked hard, and stayed out of trouble. But this is too much." Without waiting for a response, she turned and climbed the stairs to her room, the slam of the door echoing her frustration. Alone, she sank onto her bed, staring at the ceiling. The invitation lay crumpled on the floor where she'd dropped it. Her phone buzzed. Tasha was checking in as always. "Tell me you're not letting those people make you cry." Tasha's voice came through sharp and protective the moment Nia answered. "I'm not crying," Nia said, though her throat tightened. "But I can't do this, Tash. I can't face Kira and Marcus acting like they've won." "Then don't," Tasha replied, her tone mischievous. "Girl, you need a break. I've got invites to the Winter Club's masquerade ball tomorrow night. Exclusive fancy, and nobody will know who you are. Come with me. Be someone else for a night." Nia hesitated, the idea both thrilling and reckless. At 25, she rarely let loose, she couldn't afford to, but the thought of escaping was tempting even for a few hours. "I don't know, Tash. I'm not in the mood for parties." "It's not a party. It's a transformation," Tasha insisted. "One night to forget Kira, Marcus, and your parents' nonsense. Just you, a mask, and a chance to feel alive." "What do you say?" Nia closed her eyes, her heart tugging between exhaustion and a spark of defiance. Maybe Tasha was right. Perhaps she deserved one night to be free. "Okay," she said finally, a small smile breaking through. "I'm in." Little did she know that decision would change her life forever. What do you think Nia will find at the masquerade ball? Drop a comment below. With your predictions, hit that like button. If you're rooting for her, and subscribe to catch the next chapter of her journey, you won't want to miss what happens next. The Chicago night was sharp and cold, the wind slicing through Nia Thompson's emerald gown as she stepped out of Tasha's car in front of the Winter Club. The grand building loomed before her, its iron gates open to a garden aglow with golden fairy lights that led to a marble entrance. Nia's heart thumped, a mix of nerves and exhilaration. She adjusted the silver mask covering half her face, its delicate filigree catching the light. In her gown with its flowing skirt and daring slit, she felt like a stranger to herself, a woman unbound by the pain of Kira's betrayal or her parents' expectations. Tonight, she could be anyone. "Breathe, girl," Tasha whispered, squeezing Nia's hand. Tasha's sapphire dress shimmered, her mask a cascade of black feathers. "You look like a queen. Let's own this." Nia caught her reflection in a nearby window, barely recognizing the poised figure staring back. The mask gave her a shield, a chance to shed the weight of being the good daughter. She nodded, a spark igniting in her chest. "Let's do this." The Winter Club's ballroom was a vision of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across mirrored walls, creating an ethereal glow. Masked guests in tailored suits and extravagant gowns glided across the polished floor, their laughter mingling with the soft strains of a string quartet. Nia felt like she'd stepped into a dream, a world far from her cramped office and lecture halls. Tasha pulled her toward the bar, where a bartender in a velvet jacket poured 2 cosmopolitans. To forget the nonsense, Tasha toasted, clinking her glass against Nia's. Nia swirled the reddish liquid, then took a sip, the alcohol warming her from within. To being someone else, she added, her voice lighter than it had been in months. They laughed, weaving through the crowd to the dance floor. The music shifted to a lively waltz, and Tasha spun Nia among the masked strangers, their movements unburdened. Nia felt untethered for the first time in years. No Kira, no Marcus, no suffocating family obligations, just the rhythm of the music and the thrill of anonymity. Then she felt a prickle at the back of her neck, the sensation of being watched. She turned, and her breath caught. Across the ballroom, a man stood apart from the crowd, his tall frame commanding in a black suit, tailored to perfection. His dark and sleek mask revealed only a strong jaw and piercing eyes that locked onto hers. They weren't just any eyes. They were a striking, intense, and magnetic shade holding her in place. He was white, his presence radiating confidence. Yet there was something unguarded in how he looked at her, as if he saw past her mask. He moved toward her, his steps deliberate, cutting through the crowd like a tide parting. Nia's pulse quickened, but she couldn't look away. He stopped inches from her, close enough that she caught the faint scent of his cologne, sandalwood and spice. Leaning in, his lips brushed near her ear, his voice deep and husky. "The most beautiful woman here wouldn't deny me a dance, would she?" Nia's cheeks warmed, but the mask gave her courage. "Depends," she replied, her tone teasing. "Can you keep up?" His lips curved into a slow smile, and he offered his hand. "Let's find out." He pulled her onto the dance floor, his hand firm on her waist, guiding her effortlessly to a slower, more intimate melody. Their bodies moved in sync, as if they'd danced together 100 times. His touch was steady, yet gentle, his eyes never leaving hers. He said, "You're not a regular here." His voice low, studying her, as if piecing together a puzzle. "Neither are you," Nia countered, noting the slight drawl in his voice, hinting somewhere warmer. "Maybe Texas, and just passing through." "For tonight I'm here," he said, his smile enigmatic. "Tomorrow doesn't exist." The words sent a shiver down her spine. Maybe it was the cosmopolitan, the freedom of the mask, or how he looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Whatever it was, Nia felt something shift inside her, a longing she hadn't allowed herself to think in years. His grip tightened, his lips hovering dangerously close. He murmured, "I want to kiss you," his breath warm against her skin, "but only if you want it too." Nia's heart raced, but she didn't hesitate. She closed her eyes, letting the moment sweep her away. The kiss started soft, exploratory, but deepened quickly, his hands sliding down her back, pulling her closer. The world around them faded, the music, the crowd, the weight of her past. His lips trailed to her neck, igniting sparks across her skin. Without a word, he led her down a dimly lit corridor, away from the party's hum. Against the cool wall, their kisses grew urgent, their bodies pressed together as if made for each other. In that stolen moment, Nia surrendered to desire. There was no logic, no caution, just the raw electric connection between them. They lost themselves in each other, time blurring into a haze of touch and whispered sighs. When it was over, he held her close, his forehead resting against hers, his eyes searching hers with unexpected tenderness. He said, "I want to see you again," his fingers tracing her cheek. Before Nia could respond, his phone buzzed sharply in his pocket. He tensed, pulling it out. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice suddenly sharp. A pause. Then his expression shifted. Something urgent, almost pained. "I'm coming," he said, and just like that, he was moving away. His steps hurried. "Wait!" Nia started, but he was already gone, disappearing into the shadows without a name or a number. Nia stood there, her dress slightly askew, her heart pounding with exhilaration and confusion. She straightened herself, smoothing her gown, and returned to the ballroom. Tasha was at their table, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Where'd you disappear to?" And who was that guy? He was fine. Nia sank into her chair, still dazed. I don't even know his name, she admitted, a small laugh escaping her. But Tash, I've never felt like that before. Tasha's grin widened, but then her expression shifted to concern. You were careful. Did you use protection? Nia froze, the thrill of the night crashing into reality. Her silence was answer enough. Tasha's eyes widened. Nia! I know, Nia whispered, a chill settling over her. I wasn't thinking. Tasha reached for her hand. Okay, no panic. We'll figure this out. Tomorrow, we'll get you to a doctor and get some tests done. I'm with you, all right? Nia nodded, but the weight of her impulsiveness pressed down on her. The man's eyes, his touch, his voice. They lingered, but so did the worry now gnawing at her. What had she done? And who was he? The Chicago morning was gray and heavy rain, tapping softly against the windows of Tasha's apartment. Nia Thompson sat on the edge of the couch, her fingers twisting the hem of her sweatshirt, her mind a whirlwind of doubt and memory. 3 weeks had passed since the masquerade ball at the Winter Club, but the night lingered like a vivid dream. The mysterious man's touch, his intense eyes, the way he'd made her feel alive, they haunted her. Yet the thrill was now overshadowed by a growing unease. She hadn't been herself lately. Nausea in the mornings, a bone-deep fatigue that no amount of coffee could shake. Tasha sprawled across the couch with a mug of tea, noticed Nia's silence. You're still thinking about him, aren't you? Tasha asked, her tone gentle but probing. The masked guy with the smooth moves. Nia managed a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. It's not just him, Tash. I don't feel right. Something's off. Tasha set her mug down, her playful demeanor fading. Off? How? Like sick off or something else? Nia's throat tightened. She hadn't dared say it aloud, but the possibility had been gnawing at her. I missed my period, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. And I've been throwing up. I thought it was stress, but... Tasha's eyes widened, but she kept her calm. Okay, let's not jump to conclusions. We need to know for sure. I'm driving you to the clinic today. No arguments. Nia nodded, grateful for Tasha's steadiness. The thought of facing this alone was unbearable. By noon, they were in the waiting room of a small women's health clinic, the fluorescent lights harsh against Nia's frayed nerves. She fidgeted with her phone, scrolling aimlessly to distract herself from the what-ifs. Tasha sat beside her, cracking jokes about the outdated magazines on the table, trying to keep the mood light. When the nurse called her name, Nia's stomach lurched. Tasha squeezed her hand. I'm right here, girl. Whatever happens, we've got this. The appointment felt endless. The doctor, a calm woman with a kind smile, asked about Nia's symptoms, her recent activities, and that night at the ball. Nia's cheeks burned as she admitted the lack of protection, her usual caution abandoned in the heat of the moment. The doctor ordered a pregnancy test and a full panel of health screenings, her tone professional but reassuring. We'll have results soon, she said, jotting notes. Try not to worry until we know more. Nia nodded, but worry was all she had. Back in the waiting room, she leaned against Tasha, her mind racing. What if she were pregnant? She didn't even know the man's name or where to find him. She'd always been the responsible one, top grade, steady job, a clear path to her architecture degree. A baby wasn't part of the plan. Not now. Not like this. 2 hours later, the doctor called her back. Tasha came along, her presence a lifeline. The doctor's expression was neutral as she reviewed the chart. Nia, your health screenings are clear. No infections. Everything looks good. But the pregnancy test came back positive. You're about 6 weeks along. The words hit like a tidal wave. Nia's breath caught the room blurring around her. Pregnant. The word echoed heavy and surreal. Tasha's hand found hers, gripping tightly, grounding her. "You're sure?" Nia asked, her voice trembling. The doctor nodded. "The test is definitive. I can schedule a follow-up to discuss your options, whether you want to continue the pregnancy, explore adoption, or consider other choices. It's a lot to process, so take your time." Nia's mind spun. Options. She hadn't planned for this, but the idea of not keeping the baby felt wrong, like a betrayal of something she couldn't yet name. She thought of her parents, Kira's smug judgment, and the man who'd vanished into the night. But beneath the fear, a quiet resolve stirred. If this were her reality, she'd face it head-on. "I want to keep it," Nia said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "I don't know how, but I'll figure it out." Tasha's eyes glistened with pride. "That's my girl. We'll make it work, I promise." The doctor smiled, handing Nia a packet of prenatal care information. "You're strong, Nia. We'll get you set up with everything you need. Come back in 2 weeks for an ultrasound." As they left the clinic, the rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh but heavy. Nia felt like she was carrying a secret too big for her body. Tasha drove in silence, giving Nia space to process. "You don't have to tell anyone yet," Tasha said, finally pulling into a coffee shop lot. "Not your parents, not Kira. This is your call." Nia stared out the window, her fingers tracing the edge of the prenatal packet. "I know, but I can't hide it forever. And I don't even know who he is, Tash. How do I tell a kid their dad was a stranger in a mask?" Tasha parked and turned to her, fierce and unwavering. "You don't need him. You've got me, your parents, and soon that little one. You're not alone, Nia. And you're gonna be the best damn mom." Nia's eyes stung, but she blinked back tears, a small laugh escaping. "You're gonna be the cool aunt, aren't you?" Tasha grinned. "Now let's get some decaf and figure out the next steps." One day at a time, Nia nodded, the weight of the news settling, but not crushing her. She didn't have all the answers, but she had a choice, and she'd chosen to embrace it. The road ahead would be hard schoolwork, her family's judgment, but for the first time, she felt a flicker of purpose beyond her pain. This baby, unexpected as it was hers, and she'd fight for them both. The kitchen of the Thompson household smelled of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls, but the warmth of the morning did little to ease Nia Thompson's nerves. She stood in the doorway, her hands clasped tightly, the prenatal care packet tucked inside her jacket, like a hidden grenade. Tasha had dropped her off, offering a fierce hug and a whispered, "You got this." But now facing her parents, Angela and Robert, Nia felt the weight of her secret pressing against her ribs. The dining table had untouched breakfast plates, as if her parents sensed something was coming. "Nia, you're back early," Angela said, her voice cautious, as she poured coffee. Her eyes flicked to Nia's tense posture. "Everything okay?" Robert looked up from his newspaper, his brow furrowing. "You slept at Tasha's again. What's going on?" Nia took a deep breath, steadying herself. She'd rehearsed this moment 100 times since the clinic yesterday, but no words felt right. She said, "I need to talk to you both," sitting at the table. Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled as she pulled out the packet and placed it in front of her. Angela's gaze locked onto the packet, recognition dawning. Robert set the paper down, his expression unreadable. "What's this about?" he asked, his tone low. Nia swallowed, her heart thudding. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was thick, the kind that swallowed sound. Angela's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Robert's jaw tightened, his eyes searching Nia's face. Finally, Angela spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Pregnant Nia, how? Who? It happened at the masquerade ball. Nia said, her cheeks burning. I don't know his name. It was a moment. I wasn't thinking. Robert leaned back, his chair creaking. You don't know the father. His voice held no anger, only a heavy disbelief that cut deeper than any shout. Nia nodded, bracing herself. I know it's a lot. I'm keeping the baby, though. I've decided. Angela's hand covered her mouth, her eyes glistening. Oh, Nia. My God. The disappointment in her mother's voice stung, but Nia pressed on. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you because you're my family. I'll figure it out, schoolwork, everything. I need you to know. Before her parents could respond, the front door swung open. Kira strode in, her designer purse swinging, Marcus trailing behind. Their laughter stopped as they caught the tension in the room. What's this, a family meeting? Kira asked, her tone mocking as she tossed her hair. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Nia's gaze. Angela hesitated, but Nia spoke first, her voice firm. I'm pregnant, Kira. That's what's happening. Kira's eyes widened, then narrowed with a venomous glint. Pregnant? By who? Some random guy. She laughed, sharp and cruel. Wow. Nia, you outdid yourself this time. Marcus smirked, leaning against the counter. Thought you were the perfect one, Nia. Guess not. Nia's fists clenched, but she refused to take the bait. I don't need your approval, she said, her gaze steady. This is my life. Angela stood, her voice sharp. That's enough, Kira. You don't get to talk to your sister like that. Kira's smile faltered, but she shrugged. Whatever. Good luck raising a kid alone. She and Marcus left, their footsteps echoing like a final jab. Robert ran a hand over his face, exhaling heavily. Nia, this is a lot. You're sure about this? I am, Nia said, meeting his eyes. I know it's not ideal, but this baby is mine. I'll make it work. Angela reached across the table, her hand covering Nia's. You're not alone, sweetheart. We're here. We'll help you through this. Nia's throat tightened, relief mixing with surprise. She'd expected lectures, not support. Robert nodded slowly. You're our daughter. We'll figure it out together. Over the next 9 months, Nia threw herself into her studies and part-time job, her determination fueled by the life growing inside her. Angela knitted tiny blankets, and Robert researched cribs, their initial shock giving way to quiet excitement. Kira and Marcus's wedding came and went. Nia didn't attend, and for once her parents didn't push. When labor came, Tasha held her hand through every contraction, and on a crisp spring morning, Nia gave birth to a healthy girl, Amara. Holding her daughter with her bright smile and tiny grasping hands, Nia felt a love so fierce it eclipsed every doubt. Kira's taunts continued, whispered at family gatherings. Single mom with no clue who the dad is, sneers when she thinks Nia couldn't hear. But Nia ignored her, focusing on Amara's giggles and the architecture sketches piling up on her desk. Her parents' home became a haven filled with Amara's toys and the smell of Angela's cooking. Nia balanced late-night feedings with late-night studying, her dreams of designing buildings now intertwined with building a future for her daughter. As Amara slept in her crib, Nia sat by the window, the Chicago skyline twinkling in the distance. She didn't know who Amara's father was, but she knew who she was: a mother, a student, a fighter. And that was enough for now. Nia Thompson sat at her cluttered desk in her childhood bedroom, the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminating her architecture textbooks and Amara's crayon drawings taped to the wall. The Chicago night was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the city and Amara's steady breathing from the crib in the corner. Nia's laptop screen displayed a half-finished design for a community center, her final project for her architecture degree. Her eyes burned from exhaustion, but she pushed through, fueled by the dream of creating spaces that mattered. Motherhood had reshaped her life, but hadn't dimmed her ambition. It had sharpened it. The past 3 years had been a relentless balancing act. Naya juggled her part-time data entry job, night classes at the university, and caring for Amara, who was now a bright, curious toddler. Her parents, Angela and Robert, were her anchors, watching Amara during Nia's long hours and filling the house with love. Angela would cook extra portions of smothered chicken for Nia to take to class, while Robert taught Amara to stack blocks into wobbly towers. Their support made the impossible possible, but didn't erase the challenges. Nia's days blurred into a cycle of diaper changes, lectures, and late-night sketching her coffee intake, rivaling her sleep deprivation. Kira's snide comments still stung at family gatherings. Still playing supermom. She'd quip her engagement ring glinting as she sipped wine. Marcus would chuckle, avoiding Nia's gaze. Nia learned to tune them out, her focus on Amara and her studies. She excelled in her program, earning praise for her innovative designs and attention to sustainable materials. Her professors saw potential, but the architecture world was hard to crack. Internships at small firms gave her experience drafting blueprints, shadowing site visits, but permanent jobs went to those with connections or years in the field. Nia's portfolio was strong, but the market was brutal. As Nia was revising a structural analysis one evening, her phone buzzed. Tasha's name flashed on the screen, her voice bursting with excitement when Nia answered. "Girl, are you sitting down? My dad just pulled strings for us jobs on a massive project in Austin. A luxury mall. Nia, it's the kind of gig that could put us on the map." Nia's heart skipped. Austin, Tasha. That's huge. What's the catch? No catch, Tasha said. It's a year-long contract, a big firm, and a big budget. We'd be junior architects, but it's real work. Design input, site oversight. My dad knows the project lead. You in? Nia's eyes drifted to Amara, sleeping with a stuffed bunny tucked under her arm. Austin was a world away from Chicago, her parents, and her daughter. The thought of leaving Amara twisted her gut. What about Amara? I've never been away from her. Tasha's voice softened. I know, Nia. Your parents can watch her for a bit. Get settled. Find a good daycare, then bring her down. This is your shot. You've been killing yourself for that degree. Don't let it sit on a shelf. Nia chewed her lip, her mind racing. The job was a dream, a chance to work on a high-profile project, to prove herself in a field dominated by names bigger than hers. But Amara was her world. Could she trust herself to build a future for them both from hundreds of miles away? She closed her laptop, the community center design staring back at her, reminding her why she'd started this journey. I need to talk to my parents, Nia said finally, but I'm leaning toward yes. That's my girl. Tasha cheered. We're going to take Austin by storm. The next morning, Nia sat at the kitchen table with Angela and Robert, and Amara played with blocks on the floor. She laid out Tasha's offer, her voice steady, but her hands fidgeting. It's a huge opportunity, but I must leave Amara for a few months. I'd find a place, get her into a daycare, and bring her to Austin. I don't know if I can do that to her. Angela reached for Nia's hand, her grip warm. Nia, you've always done right by that girl. This job is your future, hers too. We'll take care of Amara until you're ready. She'll be fine. Robert nodded, his eyes softening. You're not abandoning her. You're building something for both of you. Chase your dream, Nia. We've got her. Nia's throat tightened, gratitude washing over her. She'd feared judgment, but her parents saw her strength, her drive. Thank you, she whispered, her eyes stinging. Amara toddled over, offering a block with a grin. Nia scooped her up, kissing her forehead. Mommy's gonna make you proud, okay? As she packed her bags that week, Nia felt hope and dread. Austin was a fresh start, a chance to turn her sketches into reality. But leaving Amara even temporarily felt like leaving a piece of her heart behind. She tucked one of Amara's drawings into her suitcase, a reminder of what she was fighting for. Tasha's excitement was infectious, promising late-night tacos and new adventures. But Nia knew this move was more than a job. It was a leap into the unknown. The Chicago sun filtered through the living room curtains, casting dappled light across the colorful chaos of toys scattered on the rug. Amara Nia Thompson's 3-year-old daughter sat cross-legged, her tiny hands clutching a purple crayon as she scribbled on a construction paper. Her curls bounced with each enthusiastic stroke, her face scrunched in concentration. A half-built tower of wooden blocks teetered nearby, evidence of her morning's architectural ambitions. To Amara, this was her kingdom, and she was its joyful queen. "Grandma, look," Amara chirped, holding up her drawing, a wobbly house with a giant sun above it. Knitting a sweater in her favorite armchair, Angela leaned forward with a warm smile. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Angela said, setting her needles aside. "Is that our house?" Amara shook her head, her eyes bright. "It's Mommy's house when I go to Austin with her." Angela's heart squeezed at the mention of Nia, who had been working on a high-profile architecture project in Austin for 2 weeks now. Amara's pronunciation of Austin was adorably off, but her longing for her mother was crystal clear. Since Nia's departure, Amara had been her usual sunny self, chattering about butterflies, demanding extra bedtime stories. But her questions about Nia had grown more frequent, each laced with a toddler's unfiltered yearning. Robert entered, wiping his hands on a dish towel after cleaning lunch. "What's this? I hear about a house," he asked, crouching beside Amara. His deep voice was gentle, his eyes crinkling as she thrust the drawing at him. "For Mommy," Amara repeated, pointing to the sun. "She needs a big light so she can draw her buildings." Robert chuckled, ruffling her curls. "Smart girl. Your mommy's gonna love this." Amara beamed, then scrambled to her feet, grabbing a toy phone. "I'm gonna call Mommy now," she announced, toddling to the couch where Angela kept her tablet for video calls. Their nightly ritual was a lifeline, bridging the 1,000 miles between Chicago and Austin. Angela set up the call, and within moments, Nia's face appeared on the screen, her smile tired but radiant. "Mommy?" Amara squealed, pressing her nose to the tablet. "I made you a house. See?" She held up her drawing, oblivious to the screen's angle. Nia's laughter crackled through the speaker, warm and full. "That's the prettiest house I've ever seen, baby. You're gonna be an architect like Mommy, huh?" Amara giggled, shaking her head. "No, I'm gonna be a story maker, like the books Grandpa reads." Nia's eyes softened, though a flicker of pain crossed her face. "You can be anything you want, Amara. How's my favorite girl doing?" Amara launched into a breathless recap of her day. The park, the ice cream. Grandpa sneaked her the caterpillar she named Wiggles. Angela and Robert watched, their hearts swelling at her animation. But when Amara paused, her voice grew small. "Mommy, when are you coming back? I miss you." Nia's smile wavered, and she leaned closer to the camera. "I miss you too, sweetheart. So much. I'm working hard so we can be together in Austin soon. I'm looking at daycares, and we'll find a perfect place for you to play and make friends." "Okay." Amara nodded, but her lip quivered. "Do you know my daddy yet?" The question hung in the air, sharp and unexpected. Nia's breath caught her eyes, darting to Angela, who gave a subtle nod of encouragement. Amara had asked about her father before, and her curiosity grew as she noticed other kids with dads at the park. Nia had always deflected gently, but it pierced her heart each time. She didn't know the man from the masquerade ball, and didn't even have a name to offer her daughter. "Not yet," baby Nia said softly, her voice steady despite the ache. "But you've got me, Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Tasha. We love you more than the moon, and I'm going to take care of you always." Amara tilted her head considering this. "Okay," she said finally, her smile returning. "I love you to the stars. I love you to the stars and back," Nia replied, blowing a kiss. They chatted a bit longer, Amara showing off her blocks until Angela ushered her to bed. As the call ended, Nia's face lingered on the screen, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. In her Austin apartment, Nia set her phone down, the silence heavy. Amara's question about her father echoed, stirring the guilt she'd buried since that night at the ball. She'd chosen to keep Amara to build a life for them, but the mystery of her father felt like a loose thread tugging at her resolve. Tasha, sprawled on the couch, noticed her quiet. "She's okay, Nia," Tasha said, her voice gentle. "Amara has more love than most kids, and you're killing it out here." Nia nodded, forcing a smile. "I know. I hate being away from her. And that question, I don't know how to answer it forever." "You don't have to," Tasha said. "You're enough. And when she's here, you'll show her the world." Nia hugged her knees, Amara's drawing taped to her fridge across the room. She was in Austin for her daughter, for their future. Tomorrow she'd visit daycares and start laying roots. Amara's world was small but vibrant, and Nia would fight to make it limitless. The Austin morning was bright, the sun glinting off the glass walls of the sleek office building where Nia Thompson and Tasha stood, clutching their portfolios. The headquarters of Pinnacle Designs buzzed with anticipation, the air filled with the hum of printers and murmured discussions. Nia adjusted her tailored blazer, her nerves tingling as she prepared for her first major meeting on the luxury mall project. This was her chance to prove herself, to turn her sketches into reality. But beneath her professional calm, a quiet ache lingered. Amara's question about her father from last night's video call still echoed in her mind. Tasha nudged her, her eyes sparkling. "Ready to wow them, superstar?" Nia managed a smile, smoothing her skirt. "As ready as I'll ever be. Let's do this." They entered the conference room, a modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Austin skyline. Digital screens displayed renderings of the mall, a sleek, eco-friendly complex that promised to redefine the city's commercial scene. Engineers, designers, and executives filled the seats, their voices a low hum. Nia and Tasha took their places near the back, notebooks, open pens poised. The project lead, Thomas Grayson, a wiry man with a clipped tone, stood at the front, outlining the day's agenda. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thomas began, "we're in the critical phase of the Riverfront Mall project. Tomorrow, our primary investor, James Whitaker, will visit to review progress. His approval is key, so we need everyone to be sharp." Murmurs rippled through the room. James Whitaker's name carried weight, a self-made billionaire, known for transforming cityscapes with his ambitious developments. Nia exchanged a glance with Tasha, who leaned in and whispered, "Heard he's a big deal. My dad says he's tough but fair." Nia nodded, her focus, returning to her notes. She'd spent the past week diving into the project, proposing sustainable materials that could cut costs without sacrificing aesthetics. Her ideas were bold, and she hoped they'd catch the team's attention. But as Thomas droned about timelines, the door swung open, and the room fell silent. James Whitaker strode in, his presence commanding the space. He was tall, his dark suit impeccably tailored, his movements confident yet unhurried. His sharp jawline and piercing eyes were unmistakable, even without the mask from that night 4 years ago. Nia's breath caught her pen slipping from her fingers. It was him, the man from the masquerade ball, the father of her daughter. Her heart pounded, the room tilting as memories flooded back his husky voice. The heat of his touch, the way he'd vanished without a word. James scanned the room, his gaze landing on Nia. For a split second, his eyes widened, a flicker of recognition passing across his face. He recovered quickly, his expression settling into a neutral mask. But Nia felt the weight of his stare like a physical touch. She gripped her notebook, forcing herself to breathe. He couldn't know about Amara, not yet, but the truth hung between them, an unspoken current crackling. Thomas continued, oblivious to the tension. "Mr. Whitaker, we're thrilled to have you here. Let me introduce our new architects from Chicago, Nia Thompson and Tasha Lascaraine." James's eyes locked onto Nia's again, and she felt exposed, as if he could see every secret she carried. "Chicago," he said, his voice low, almost a murmur. "It's been a while since I was there." The words took a weight only Nia understood, a nod to that night they'd shared. Tasha nudged Nia under the table, scribbling on a notepad. "You okay? You look like you saw a ghost." Nia's hand trembled as she wrote back, "It's him from the ball." Tasha's eyes widened, but she kept quiet, sensing the moment's gravity. James sat at the head of the table, his demeanor all business, as Thomas launched into a project overview. Nia tried to focus, but her mind raced. How was he here? A billionaire investor. The man who'd left her in a dark corridor now held her career in his hands. Did he remember her as vividly as she remembered him? His occasional glances suggested he did, each sending a jolt through her. As Thomas detailed the mall's eco-friendly features, Nia forced herself to speak, her voice steady despite her nerves. She said, "I've proposed using reclaimed wood for the interior accents," sliding her sketches forward. "It's sustainable and adds warmth to the design." James leaned forward, studying her work. "Interesting choice," he said, his tone measured but curious. "It aligns with the project's green goals. Tell me more." Nia met his gaze, her professionalism a shield. She outlined her vision: cost savings, aesthetic appeal, environmental impact, her confidence growing with each word. The room nodded approvingly, but James's attention felt personal, his eyes searching hers for something beyond the blueprints. Nia gathered her things when the meeting ended, her heart still racing. Tasha leaned close. "Girl, that was him." "What now?" "I don't know," Nia whispered, glancing at James, who was speaking with Thomas but stealing looks her way. "I need to think." As they headed for the elevator, Nia felt a prickle of awareness. James was behind her, his presence inescapable. She couldn't run from this, not from him or the truth about Amara. But for now, she needed space to process the shock of seeing him again. The Austin skyline shimmered through the conference room's panoramic windows as the meeting adjourned, leaving Nia Thompson with a racing heart and a mind tangled in memories. James Whitaker, the man from the masquerade ball, stood at the far end of the room, his tailored suit accentuating his commanding presence. He was deep in conversation with Thomas Grayson, the project lead, but his eyes flicked toward Nia, a silent acknowledgement that sent a shiver down her spine. She gathered her notes, her fingers unsteady, as Tasha leaned close, her voice hushed. "Nia, you're sure it's him?" Tasha asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Is James Whitaker the guy from 4 years ago?" Nia nodded, her throat tight. "I'd know him anywhere. Those eyes, that voice, it's him." Tasha grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door. "We need to talk. Now." They slipped into a quiet corner of the office hallway, the workplace hum fading behind them. Nia's mind churned with questions. How had the masked stranger from a Chicago ballroom become a billionaire investor? Why had he vanished that night? And most pressing, what would he do if he learned about Amara? Tasha crossed her arms, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "What's your next move, Nia? You can't just pretend this didn't happen. I know, Nia said, rubbing her temples. But I can't tell him about Amara yet. I don't know who he is now, married, single, or anything. Tasha raised an eyebrow. Girl, he looked at you like you were the only person in that room. He remembers you. Nia's cheeks warmed, but she pushed the thought aside. She needed answers, not hope. Meanwhile, across the office, James stood by a window, his gaze distant as Thomas droned about budget projections. His thoughts were elsewhere, locked on the woman who'd haunted him for 4 years. He turned to his assistant Ethan, a lanky man with a quick smile who'd been hovering nearby. Ethan, James said, his voice low. Find out everything you can about Nia Thompson. Discreetly. Ethan nodded, sensing the weight in his boss's tone. Got it. The new architect, right? Anything specific you're looking for? James hesitated, his jaw tightening. Just everything. Background work, history, anything relevant. As Ethan walked away, James's mind drifted to that night in Chicago. He'd been 28, fresh off a tech startup sale that had netted him millions, attending the Winter Club ball to network with investors. Then he'd seen her, Nia. Though he hadn't known her name, her emerald gown glowing under the chandeliers, her confidence magnetic. Their connection had been instant, electric, a moment of abandon he'd never replicated. But a call from his sister, hospitalized after a car accident, had pulled him away. By the time he returned to the ball, she was gone. He'd scoured the guest list, asked every contact, but she'd vanished like a dream. The years that followed were a blur of ambition. James built his real estate empire, turning millions into billions with strategic developments across Texas. But success came at a cost. Last year, he'd proposed to a socialite, Claire, drawn to her polish and their shared world. Yet something held him back, memories of that night, of a woman who'd made him feel alive in a way Claire never could. 3 months ago, he'd ended the engagement, unable to commit to a life that felt hollow. Now, seeing Nia again, he knew why. Back in the hallway, Nia and Tasha headed for the elevator, their footsteps quick. Nia's thoughts were a storm. James's presence threatened everything she'd built, yet stirred feelings she'd buried. As they waited, Ethan approached, his smile easy. Nia and Tasha, great work there. Mr. Whitaker was impressed with your sustainable design pitch, Nia. Nia forced a polite nod, her stomach nodding. Thanks, Ethan. I want to contribute. Ethan lingered, his eyes on Nia. Say if you're free, let's grab coffee sometime. Discuss the project. Tasha stifled a laugh, but Nia kept her composure. I appreciate that, but I'm swamped right now, another time. Ethan shrugged, undeterred, and walked off. Tasha smirked. He's got no idea he's barking up the wrong tree. Your billionaire mystery man's got competition. Nia rolled her eyes, but her mind was elsewhere. The elevator dinged, and as the doors opened, James stepped out alone. Their eyes met, and the air thickened with unspoken history. Tasha nudged Nia. I'll catch the next one, she said, stepping back. Nia hesitated, then entered the elevator, James beside her. The doors closed, sealing them in a confined space. He stood close, his cologne sandalwood and spice stirring memories of that night. Nia Thompson. He said, his voice low, testing her name. From Chicago. Her heart raced, but she kept her tone even. And you're James Whitaker, big leap from a masked stranger. He smiled, a flicker of regret in his eyes. I never meant to disappear that night, family emergency. I looked for you, but you were gone. Nia's breath caught. He'd looked for her. Before she could respond, the elevator stopped and the doors opened. James stepped out, but his gaze held hers. We need to talk. Soon. Nia nodded, her voice barely audible. Yeah, soon. As he walked away, Nia leaned against the elevator wall, her mind reeling. He remembered her. But what did that mean? And how could she tell him about Amara without upending her world? The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow over Austin's downtown, its light reflecting off the glass facade of Millennium Coffee, where Nia Thompson sat, her fingers tracing the rim of a latte cup. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since the elevator encounter with James Whitaker earlier that day. His words, "We need to talk," echoed in her mind, stirring a mix of anticipation and dread. She'd agreed to meet him here away from the office's prying eyes, but now, as the cafe's hum of conversation surrounded her, she questioned her decision. Could she face the man who'd changed her life without revealing the secret she'd carried for 4 years? Tasha had been relentless, texting her encouragement. "You got this, Nia. Find out who he is before you spill about Amara." Nia glanced at her phone, and a photo of Amara's toothy grin was on the lock screen, grounding her. She wasn't just here for herself. She was here for her daughter, to understand the man who was unknowingly Amara's father. The cafe door chimed, and James walked in, drawing glances from nearby tables. His suit jacket was gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. He scanned the room, his eyes locking onto Nia's with an intensity that made her breath catch. He crossed the space in long strides, sliding into the chair across from her with a small, almost hesitant smile. "Nia," he said, her name soft on his lips. "Thanks for meeting me." She nodded, her fingers tightening around her cup. "You said we needed to talk. So talk." He leaned forward, his elbows on the table, his gaze unwavering. "I've thought about you every day since that night. I didn't know your name, but I couldn't forget you. When I saw you in that meeting, it felt like fate." Nia's chest tightened, his sincerity disarming her. She'd expected charm, maybe arrogance, but not this raw honesty. "She said you left without a word," her voice steady but edged with old hurt. "I didn't know what to think." James's jaw clenched, regret flickering in his eyes. "My sister was in an accident that night. I had to go. By the time I got back to the ball, you were gone. I tried to find you guest lists, contacts, everything, but it was like you'd vanished." Nia's heart stuttered. He'd tried to find her. The resentment she'd nursed for years wavered, but she held her ground. "And now, why tell me this?" "Because I don't want to lose you again," he said, his voice low and urgent. "I've built a life, Nia, but it's never felt complete. Not since you." Her breath hitched the air between them, charged. She wanted to believe him, to let herself fall into the pull of his words. But Amara's existence loomed large. Without knowing more, she couldn't risk her daughter's heart or her own. "You can't tell me, James. 4 years is a long time." "Then let me know you," he said, reaching for her hand. His touch sent a jolt through her, warm and familiar. "Tell me who Nia Thompson is now." She pulled her hand back, needing distance to think. "I'm a mother," she said, testing the waters. "I have a daughter. Everything I do is for her." James's eyes widened slightly, but his expression softened. "A daughter. That's incredible. What's she like?" Nia's guard softened, a smile tugging at her lips. "Amara's 3. She's smart, loves drawing, and talks a mile a minute. She's my world." He nodded, his gaze warm but curious. "And her father?" The question hung heavy, and Nia's heart pounded. She could tell him now, change everything, but doubt held her back. Was he married? Had he moved on? She needed to trust him first. "He's not in the picture," she said, her voice neutral. "It's just me and her." James leaned back, studying her. "You're strong, Nia. I always knew you were." The compliment stirred something in her, a flicker of the connection they'd shared at the ball. The cafe seemed to fade, leaving just the two of them. He reached for her hand again, and this time she let him, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "Let me take you to dinner," he said. No pressure, just a chance to start over. Nia hesitated, her mind warring with her heart. Dinner was a step toward something, maybe closure, maybe more. Against her better judgment, she nodded. One dinner. That's all I'm promising. His smile was radiant, easing the tension. They left the cafe, walking to a nearby restaurant, the city's evening buzz enveloping them. Over plates of cedar plank salmon and glasses of wine, they talked not about the past, but the present. Nia shared her passion for sustainable architecture and her pride in her degree. James spoke of his latest projects, his voice lighting up when he described revitalizing urban spaces. Their laughter came easily, the years apart melting away. As they walked back to her apartment, the night air cool against her skin. James stopped, his hand brushing hers. I meant what I said, Nia. I don't want to lose you again. She looked up at him, his eyes reflecting the streetlights, and felt the pull of that night 4 years ago. He leaned in, and she didn't pull away. The kiss was slow, deliberate, reigniting a spark she'd thought long extinguished. But as his arms tightened around her, Amara's face flashed in her mind, and she stepped back breathless. I can't do this yet, she said, her voice soft but firm. Not until I know it's real. James nodded, his expression earnest. I'll wait, Nia, as long as it takes. As she watched him walk away, Nia's heart raced with possibility and fear. Could she trust him with her truth? Would he want Amara as much as he seemed to enjoy her? The Austin night was warm, a gentle breeze stirring as Nia Thompson stood outside her apartment building, her phone clutched tightly. The memory of James Whittaker's kiss from their dinner lingered, a mix of longing and caution swirling in her chest. She'd let herself get close, let the spark from 4 years ago flare again. But the weight of her secret, Amara's paternity, pressed harder than ever. She couldn't keep it from him any longer, not after how he'd looked at her promising to wait. But telling him meant risking everything. Her heart, her daughter's future, her carefully built life. Inside, Tasha was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. You're back early, she said, glancing up. How was dinner with Mr. Billionaire? Nia sank into a chair, her voice low. It was intense. He wants to see me again, Tash. He says he's not going anywhere this time. Tasha's eyebrows shot up. And you believe him? I want to, Nia admitted, her fingers tracing the edge of her phone. But I can't move forward without telling him about Amara. It's eating me up. Tasha sat up, her expression serious. You sure you're ready? Once you tell him, there's no going back. Nia nodded, her resolve hardening. I know. He deserves to know, and Amara deserves a chance to know him if he's willing. Before Tasha could respond, Nia's phone lit up with an incoming video call from Amara. Her heart lifted at the sight of her daughter's name. She answered, and Amara's beaming face filled the screen, her curls wild from a day of play. Mommy, she squealed, waving a stuffed bunny. Grandma made cookies and I saved you one. Nia laughed, the sound easing her tension. You're too good to me, baby. How's my favorite girl? As Amara chattered about her day, Nia heard a knock at the door. Tasha went to answer, and Nia's stomach dropped when she saw James step inside, his expression a mix of determination and nerves. Tasha shot Nia a look, mouthing, What the hell? Nia motioned for her to stay, her pulse racing, as James approached. I couldn't wait, James said, his voice low. I needed to see you again. Amara's voice piped up from the phone. Mommy, who's that? Nia froze, her eyes locking with James's. His gaze flicked to the screen and time seemed to stop for a moment. Amara tilted her head, curious, her bright eyes unmistakably mirroring his. James's breath caught his face, softening with wonder and realization. Nia, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Is she? Nia's heart pounded, but she couldn't look away. She turned the phone so James could see Amara. "James, this is Amara, my daughter." She took a deep breath, the words trembling on her lips. "Our daughter." The silence was heavy, charged with the weight of truth. James's eyes widened, his hand running through his hair as he processed her words. "Our daughter." He repeated, his voice thick with emotion. He leaned closer to the screen, his gaze fixed on Amara, who waved shyly. "Hi," he said, his voice cracking. "Your beautiful princess." Amara giggled. "You talk funny. Are you Mommy's friend?" James looked at Nia, his eyes glistening. "I hope so," he said softly. "And I'd love to be your friend too." Nia's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes. She ended the call gently, promising Amara another chat tomorrow. When the screen went dark, she faced James, her heart exposed. "She's 3 from that night at the ball. I didn't know how to find you, and I've been raising her alone." James sank onto the couch, his hands clasped tightly. "I have a daughter," he murmured, as if testing the words. Then his gaze met hers, raw and unguarded. "Nia, I'm so sorry I wasn't there. If I'd known—" "You didn't," Nia said, her voice steady but kind. "I didn't either, not at first. But she's my everything, James. I need to know you're in this for real, not just for me, but for her." He stood, closing the distance between them, gently cupping her face. "I'm in, Nia. I've spent 4 years regretting that I lost you. Now I have a daughter, and I won't miss another moment. I want to meet her, be her father, be with you if you'll let me." Nia's breath hitched, his sincerity piercing her defenses. She saw the truth in his eyes, the same intensity from that night, now tempered with a promise. "It's not that simple," she said, stepping back. "We need time. Amara needs stability, and I need to trust you." James nodded, his expression resolute. "I'll prove it, whatever it takes. Can I come to Chicago with you? To meet her?" Nia hesitated, her heart warring with her head. But Amara's curious smile flashed in her mind, and she knew this was the right step. "Yes," she said finally. "Come with me." As James embraced her tightly, Nia felt fear and hope. The truth was out, but the path ahead was uncertain. Would James be the father Amara deserved? Could they build something real? The Chicago skyline loomed through the aeroplane window as Nia Thompson gripped the armrest, her heart tangled with nerves and hope. Beside her, James Whitaker stared at his phone. A photo of Amara's drawing the wobbly house with a giant sun open on the screen. They were en route to meet their daughter, a 3-year-old bundle of curiosity who had no idea her father was about to enter her life. Nia's revelation in Austin that James was Amara's father had shifted everything, and now the reality of blending their worlds felt both exhilarating and daunting. James turned to her, his voice low. "You think she'll like me?" Nia's lips curved into a soft smile. "She'll love you. Just be yourself, and maybe bring some crayons. She's obsessed with drawing." He chuckled, but his eyes held a flicker of anxiety. "I want to get this right, Nia. For her. For you." She squeezed his hand, her nerves easing at his sincerity. "We'll figure it out together." Landing in Chicago brought a rush of familiarity. The crisp autumn air greeted them as they headed to Nia's parents' house, where Amara waited. Nia had called ahead, warning Angela and Robert about James's arrival. Their support had been unwavering, but she knew they'd have questions. As for Kira, Nia braced herself. Her sister's cruelty had festered for years, and this visit was a chance to confront it, to clear the air for Amara's sake. Angela opened the door at the Thompson house, her eyes widening at James's tall frame. "Nia, honey, she said, pulling her into a hug. "And you must be James." "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," James said, offering a handshake. "Thank you for having me." Robert appeared, his gaze assessing but warm. "Come in. Amara's in the backyard drawing up a storm." Nia's heart lifted at the thought of her daughter. They stepped into the cozy living room, toys scattered across the rug. Through the window, Amara sat at a child-sized table, her tongue poking out as she colored. James's breath caught his eyes locked on her. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Meet her, Nia," said, nudging him gently. "I'll catch up." James stepped outside, crouching beside Amara's table. "Hi, Princess," he said, his voice soft. "I'm James. I love your drawings." Amara looked up, her eyes bright with curiosity. "You like to draw too?" she asked, holding a green crayon. He said, "Only if you teach me taking the crayon with a grin." Amara giggled, scooting over to make room. Within minutes, they sketched a lopsided castle, Amara's chatter filling the air. Nia watched from the doorway, her heart swelling. James was a natural, his patience and playfulness easing Amara's shyness. Inside, Angela poured tea, her eyes misty. "He seems good with her," she said. "You sure about this?" Nia nodded, her voice firm. "He wants to be her father. I believe him, but we're taking it slow." Robert clapped a hand on her shoulder. "You've always known what's best for that girl. We trust you." The moment was interrupted by the front door swinging open. Kira strode in, Marcus, trailing behind their faces, souring at the sight of Nia and James in the backyard. "What's this?" Kira asked, her tone sharp. "You brought a rich guy to play house?" Nia's jaw tightened, but she faced her sister head on. "James is Amara's father. He's here to meet her, and I'd like to talk to you alone." Kira's eyes narrowed, but she followed Nia to the kitchen, leaving Marcus with Angela and Robert. Nia closed the door, her voice steady. "Kira, I'm done with your jabs. You hurt me, you and Marcus, and I've carried that for years. But I'm letting it go for Amara, for me. Please stop, or we can't be family anymore." Kira's smirk faltered, her eyes flickering with something like shame. "You think you're better than me, Nia. Always have. Perfect student, perfect mom." "That's not true," Nia said, her voice soft but firm. "I just wanted my sister back. You chose Marcus, and I've made my peace with that. Can you make peace with me?" Kira looked away, her fingers twisting her ring. After a long pause, she nodded. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice low. "I'll try." Nia exhaled, weightlifting. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Back in the backyard, Amara climbed onto James's lap, showing him her bunny. Marcus watched from the porch, his expression unreadable, but he stayed silent. Angela hugged Nia, her eyes shining. "You did well, honey." James carried a sleepy Amara inside as the sun set her head on his shoulder. Nia met his gaze, a silent promise passing between them. They were building something new, not just for Amara, but for themselves. The Austin spring was vibrant, the air scented with blooming jasmine, as Nia Thompson stood in a sunlit bridal suite, her reflection shimmering in a floor-length mirror. Her white gown flowed elegantly, its delicate lace tracing her curves, a long veil trailing like a whisper. She smoothed her hands over the fabric, her heart fluttering with joy and nerves. Today, she would marry James Whitaker, the man who'd re-entered her life like a storm, bringing with him a future she'd never dared to imagine. Amara, her daughter, twirled nearby in a tiny flower girl dress, her curls adorned with a crown of daisies. "Mommy, you look like a princess," Amara squealed, clutching a basket of petals. Nia knelt, kissing her forehead. "And you're my little queen, ready to lead the way." Amara nodded, her grin wide. Tasha burst into the room, her bridesmaid dressed in vibrant teals, her energy infectious. "Girl, it's almost time James is out there looking like he's about to faint from how much he loves you." Nia laughed, her nerves easing. The past months had been a whirlwind. After their trip to Chicago, where James met Amara and Nia confronted Kira, their bond had deepened. James proposed under the Austin stars, a simple diamond ring, glinting as he vowed to love Nia and Amara forever. She'd said yes, tears streaming knowing this was right. But blending their lives wasn't seamless. James's billionaire lifestyle clashed with Nia's grounded world, and Amara's needs came first. The wedding was held at a historic Austin estate, its gardens lush with roses. Guests filled the rows, Nia's parents, Angela and Robert, beaming with pride, Tasha's family, James's colleagues, and even Kira and Marcus, who'd kept a tentative peace since Nia's confrontation. As the music swelled, Amara skipped down the aisle, tossing petals with glee, earning soft chuckles from the crowd. Nia followed her arm, linked with Robert's, her eyes locked on James. He stood at the altar, his suit impeccable, his gaze unwavering, filled with a love that steadied her. The ceremony was heartfelt, and their vows were a promise of partnership. "Nia James," said his voice thick, "you and Amara are my home. I'll spend my life proving I'm worthy of you." Nia's voice trembled as she vowed to trust and grow with him, her words echoing with hard-won faith. When they kissed, the crowd erupted, Amara clapping loudest of all. At the reception, under twinkling lights, Nia and James danced, her head against his chest. "We did it," she whispered, her heart full. "We're just starting," he murmured, his arms tightening. Life in Austin settled into a new rhythm. James had bought a spacious home with a sprawling yard, its rooms filled with Amara's toys and Nia's architectural sketches. Nia secured a permanent role at Pinnacle Designs, and her sustainable design ideas earned her a promotion. She loved the work, but insisted on boundaries. Amara needed routine, not a life dictated by James's travel-heavy schedule. "She's starting preschool," Nia told him firmly one night. "We'll stay here until she's settled." James agreed, adjusting his business trips to prioritize family. He'd missed Amara's first years and was determined to be present now, reading her bedtime stories and building block towers. Amara adored him, calling him daddy, with a trust that melted Nia's heart. But co-parenting brought challenges. They navigated custody logistics, ensuring Amara's stability, and James set up a trust fund, which Nia insisted be modest to keep Amara grounded. Now dating a project engineer, Tasha hosted weekend barbecues at their home, where Amara ran through sprinklers, her laughter infectious. Kira sent occasional texts, her tone softer, a sign of slow healing. One evening, as Nia and James watched Amara chase fireflies, he wrapped an arm around her. "I never thought I'd have this," he said, his voice low. "You two are my miracle." Nia leaned into him, her eyes on their daughter. "Life's funny. The most challenging moments led us here." As stars dotted the sky, Nia reflected on her journey from betrayal to motherhood, from struggle to love. Every step, painful or joyful, had shaped this moment. She was home. What did you think of Nia and James's journey? Should we explore more of their story? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button. If this ending warmed your heart, and subscribe for more stories. It's just the beginning of new adventures.